Arizona overcame a shaky start and pulled away against Baylor late. Gutsy performance from the Wildcats, and they inch closer to a Big 12 title. This is Locked on Wildcats postcast.
You are Locked on Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked on Wildcats. Arizona pulled it out, won by 7, but it never felt that safe until the very, very end. Arizona able to win, riding a strong performance from their backcourt. 49 points between Bradley and Burries. Those two carried the torch all night long. Arizona overcame a pretty darn poor first half. I think the worst defensive half of the season from Arizona, and a shorthanded team rode the star power of the backcourt. And that's the beauty of this team, that Arizona in any given night can have a game that's won with their backcourt, an all-American caliber backcourt in Bradley and Burries. Both score 25 for Bradley, 24 from Burries. And they did that also against BYU. Similar performance in that one. And in other games, you see Mo Krivas dominate. You can see Anthony Del Orso score 22 in the prior two games. You can see when healthy, Koa Pete can score 30 against Florida. And the depth of this team is really, really vital. And it's being tested right now because Koa Pete was out. Anthony Del Orso gutted it out. Impressive. But he was horrible on defense in this game. I mean, every time that they scored in the second half, it was attacking Del Orso. And Arizona did a very nice job clawing back into this game after trailing by 7 at the intermission. And Baylor's tactic after that was, okay, Del Orso's in the game, let's go at him. And they scored 9 of their next 11 possessions after scoring 3 of their first 14. Couple stats that stand out to me. We'll get into some further stats, but these are the ones that are important. I thought it was the worst half of the season from Arizona, and they were only down 7. And I tweeted this out. That bodes well because if you play that poorly, you got to be down like 15 or something to really feel badly about your chances. I said the defense was atrocious, rebounding very poor as well. Gay and Nelson, I thought, were poor. Del Orso looks injured. So that was my little synopsis. But what really is impactful is the stats I'm going to give you. Arizona was killed on the boards, points off of turnovers, and points in the paint in the first half. It got better at the very end, but if you look at it, the first half stats were as follows. Arizona was 12 of 28, and Baylor was 15 of 28. So it ended up kind of close. Arizona actually made 5 of their 12 field goals from 3. Kudos to Bradley for knocking down threes. Arizona had 2 more turnovers than committed by Baylor. They were -5 on the glass and -10 in points in the paint, and then points off of turnovers -10 as well. I talked about a couple ways Arizona could make up for lack of depth. It would be defense turning into offense. They did not do that very well in this game. And I think defensively, the issue was Krivas got in foul trouble, and Awaka did not defend very well in this game, and nor did Del Orso. Those guys, I think part of the reason Arizona is so good when fully right is that they can have unlimited energy from guys that are worthy of starting and playing bigger minutes. And they get better minutes, better energy out of guys. So if you look at that first half, like I said, those are the statistics I read out to you. And the points in the paint, Arizona 22-12, they were down. How often does that happen? Never. And it wasn't so much like, oh, they were beating off the dribble. They were beating off the dribble. They were beating off back cuts. They were beating on second chances. Like Baylor had 14 points off of turnovers to Arizona's 3 in that first half. It was bad. Now, if you go to the second half, Arizona shot 50% from 3, and they shot 18 of 33 from the field in the second half. Baylor ended up shooting pretty decently from the field, but they started poorly. There was critical stretches in which they were cold, and they were only 33% from 3 in the second half. But what really makes a difference is Arizona out-rebounded Baylor 23-11. In terms of offense rebounds, it was 9-3. Second chance points, 15-7 in the second half. And then at points in the paint, it evened out. Arizona 24, 18 for Baylor. And the big one that was the discrepancy in the first half is there were so many fast break points off of turnovers for Baylor. They had 0 of those in the second half. So Arizona cleaned up the game and only had 1 turnover in the second half. So if you look at the total stats of this game, Arizona and Baylor both shot 49%. Arizona went 9 of 21, Baylor 7 of 22 from 3. So pretty darn similar there. Arizona 7 turnovers, but only 1 in the second half. Baylor just 5. I thought Arizona's defense would cause issues and they'd score cheapies off second chance points and getting out and running in transition. I was wrong there, Arizona, but they did have 25 second chance points. So if you add second chance points plus points off turnovers, 33. They just did it in a way that I don't think the proportion was normal. And then points in the paint, I would have been pretty darn shocked to tell you that Baylor was going to win in the points in the paint. But they did. They're +4. So I think the biggest thing to note is the resiliency. This team has been shorthanded for 2 weeks, and it gets even more tiring and more taxing. There's rumors Tobe Awaka sprained his ankle now. I think that Del Orso played hard, but he was inept defensively in this game. Krivas, I thought he got a terrible whistle in this game. He drew fouls, and they weren't called, and then he was called for fouls in which he was just a help defender. And I will say, I'm reading through some of these comments. I agree about the perseverance of this team. I agree with Howard on played to the level of competition, but I'd say actually Baylor played up to the level of competition. They played well in this game, and Arizona played a little bit lackluster at the beginning and played up later in the game. But I think it's impressive that they fought through. The one thing I'll say in terms of these comments that I'm addressing, I disagree that Krivas had no impact defensively. I thought when Awaka was in, it was very clear that Arizona was worse defensively than when Krivas was in. So I disagree with that one. And I think it's important to note that there are bad games. And the Big 12 Conference, like if you look at it, Carr is going to be in the top 20. He scored 26 points. Tunde Yesufu is going to go in the top 20, despite, he's got some warts to his game, but he's a freak athlete, a phenomenal athlete. And if you combine those guys, they scored 38 points. And Arizona in the first half did a very poor job defending Williams and a few of the other guys. And that's always a big thing for me is like if the team's got stars, make them earn them. But don't let Skillings, Ratai, Agbeam, and Williams beat you. In the first half, Arizona did a poor job of that. And in the second half, if you look at Williams, he had a less of an impact. If you look at Yesufu, he had less of an impact. Carr was good in the second half, but the rest of the guys, I think, had lesser impacts. And Arizona got better throughout the game. Bradley and Burries carried the torch in both halves. They scored, all but a few points. I think they were 8 of 14 in the first half, and the rest of the team was 4 of 12. And in the second half, those guys carried the torch. Bradley's efficiency waned a touch, but he still found ways to impact and hit big shots. Burries was fantastic in the second half. Karchenkov, I thought, played one of the worst games he's played. I thought defensively he got lost a few times, and I thought offensively he had happy feet early, a couple travels, forced a couple shots, but he made the right plays at the end. Ran down rebounds, got the ball. Tobe and Mo, though I will criticize a little bit in terms of the defense at times and kind of just knowing time and score, like situational stuff. Tobe and Mo ended up with 22 points and 17 boards between them. And after recent games, they haven't had numeric impact in the game, numerical impact. And so I thought they played better. And the biggest thing I'd take away, my last takeaway before diving into some stats deeper, is I think Arizona's figured out a kind of late game execution thing, because Arizona's gotten into a lot of games in which they've dominated. And early in the season, it was like set a pick for Bradley, let him go downhill against UCLA. Against Florida, it was like Bradley's going to go right. People know Bradley wants to get right. So what they found is they can set a pick and roll on the side for Burries, and Burries can naturally get downhill, but he's also got the capacity to pull up and shoot it. That's harder to guard than Bradley, who wants to get to specific spots. And now you have two of those, and they're playing in tandem together, along with the roll man and Krivas, who I thought set good screens, got downhill. And I thought Krivas did a good job offensively at the end of the game. Burries looked like he had his juice back, and after being sick for a little while, that means a lot, because Burries is the best offensive player on this team. Even when Koa Pete's playing, even when Jaden Bradley's right, Mo Krivas is right, Braden Burries is the best offensive player on the team. And Arizona gets downhill, and they have the threat of getting downhill. It opens up the threat of knocking down threes. And it works in tandem, because to answer your question, Tyler, who asked how many threes Arizona had, they had 9. And Burries assisted a lot of those for Bradley. Bradley hit open threes based on penetration off that side pick and roll and then the next pass. Krivas set those screens. Burries got downhill, and with that burst to get to the rack, it opened up 3-pointers for Bradley. Bradley and Burries worked in tandem very, very nicely today, and that's been a thing that Arizona's lacked recently because of the illness of Braden Burries. He just hasn't been assertive. When Braden Burries is assertive, it moves the necessity for Del Orso to score 22 down. Del Orso, like I said, competed. He fought hard. Defensively, he was a liability on the court today. Had 8 points, hit one really big three, and I'm thankful he played because in this game, C.D. Gay and Evan Nelson were poor. They played very poorly in this game. I thought Karchenkov didn't play his best game. I thought Awaka looked a little bit out of his depth defensively. I think he was guarding in space too frequently. And the interesting part of it is every team has one of these games. Kansas has lost to Cincinnati, and they've lost to West Virginia, and they lost to UCF. And their only other loss is to Iowa State at Iowa State. So that's a good loss. But the other three, you'd say, okay, they shouldn't have lost. Arizona really hasn't had a loss where you're like, yeah, that one doesn't make sense. Like, they were injured and they played good teams. Winning against teams that are inferior, that play as if it's their Super Bowl against you is hard. And every team but Houston and Arizona have succumbed to it. Iowa State's got 4 losses. Only 2 of them, I think, are okay. Like, they have bad losses in there. They lost to Cincinnati. They lost to who else have they lost to? They lost to Kansas. I know they lost to Kansas by a lot, and they recently lost to BYU. But they lost one other game that I didn't think was a particularly they probably should lose this type of game. So Arizona's found a way to win when they don't have their best stuff, when everyone else is playing it's like their Super Bowl. And I want to put this up there. AZ Cat Dan agreed. Those U of A chants were loud, and Cat fans were incredible in their house. You could feel it. That was palpable. That was impressive. And I want to kind of transition from this thought and get to some keys that I laid out and some stats that told the story of this game. But Arizona is now 13-2, 2 full games ahead of Kansas and Houston in conference. So if they beat Kansas, they win the Big 12. If they beat Colorado and Iowa State, or any combination of them, I think if they win 2 and they lose to Kansas, they still win. If they were to beat Kansas, they win it. Arizona is a clear favorite to win the Big 12 conference. And winning the Big 12 conference, the best conference in basketball, and, assuming they don't completely fall apart in the games after that, pretty much assures you get a 1 line, no matter how the Big 12 tournament goes. And Arizona's health is first and foremost. That is paramount right now. Coming up next, we're going to talk about what's ahead, the Big 12 ramifications. But first, before all that, the keys to this game and the corresponding statistics to see what tells the story of Arizona's most recent win. All that and more next on Locked On Wildcats. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill sitting wide open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat for you guys that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Less time searching, more time actually interviewing, and you have less stress, less time spent, more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All listeners of this show will now get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Welcome back, and bear down, everyone. Arizona 13-2 in Big 12 play. Arizona able to survive. This was not a game that I would say was pretty. I actually saw this game being ugly and a narrow win. I watched it with one of my really good friends, and he asked me what the score would be, and I said I think Arizona's going to win by 7-10, and it's going to be ugly. I would say it fit the description, but it's completely the opposite tenor that I thought the game would have. I thought Arizona would make this game ugly and intensify their defense and try to really make everyone work extremely hard on the opposite end and hope that Arizona beat them up on the glass and scores a bunch of second chance points. They did score a bunch of second chance points, but it was not the way I expected. I thought it was going to be a lower scoring game in which Arizona stifled Baylor. I was wrong there. Baylor was very good offensively. Arizona overcame a poor half defensively, fought their way back, and played with poise at the end. Either way, a win is a win. Survive and advance. I think this is important to note that Arizona did not yield in a game where it's easy to say, you know what, we got this in hand. And I'm not saying this is the way anyone would ever think, but it just kind of is a psychology thing in sports. Like, you have a game in hand, you're coming off an enormous win, and the trap game phenomenon is there. But of course, Tommy Lloyd's going to say, like, okay, you win this and you got the Big 12. Like, there's tons of incentive. But when you play that poorly in that first half, it becomes hard to find a way to play well and just turn awful into good. Like, you can improve, but I thought they played well in the second half. And I think it shows the resilience and toughness and the collectiveness of this team, because Arizona didn't play well. They didn't have some of the guys that they usually would turn to, and they found a way, once again, to score and manufacture baskets differently than they have in other games where they've had to dig deep. Okay, let's talk about some of the keys to the game. My key number one is limit three-pointers from the other guys, Williams, Agbeam, and make Tunde and Carr play the heroes. I mean, they kind of did. I think Baylor hit 7 threes. Yeah, 7 of 22, which is fine. It's not great. They didn't shoot out of their skin, but they also didn't shoot themselves out of the game. And the other guys hit 3 threes. So my goal was to hit under 4 threes from the other guys. So Arizona achieved that. And Carr and Yesufu combined for 4 threes on 12 attempts. So overall, I'd say Arizona achieved that goal. Secondly, dominate the glass. Baylor is athletic, but not very good in the front court, and they're bad on the defensive glass, conceding 32% of misses, which is good for 254th in the country. That was the key. I expected Arizona to make scoring hard for Baylor and thus win the glass by 10 plus, and win the offensive glass by 5 plus. So Arizona should dominate the glass and win second chance points. That was my hypothesis. Well, Arizona was +7, so not quite what I thought. They're only +3 on the defensive glass because Baylor shot the exact same percentage, 49% from the field. But Arizona did win by 4 on the offensive glass, and those 13 offensive rebounds turned into 25 points. They were opportunistic in that. So the second chance points, they were +11. That is important. But I would say they didn't dominate the glass as much as I thought. I thought Arizona was a little bit lazy in the first half, and I thought that the impact of foul trouble, Krivas sitting and Awaka playing in space more, hurt them on the glass. And Arizona obviously didn't play their usual size of Koa Pete, Mo Krivas, and Tobe Awaka all in a triumvirate getting a ton of rebounds. I said the minimized depth has hurt Arizona in that department, and I expected a concerted effort to be more forceful on the glass and having more of an impact from the interior for the bigs. I expected more points and rebounds from those guys, and they did, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily what I expected. The third key was force turnovers and get on runs with offense being made easy by the defense being stellar. I talked about that earlier in this, and I was dead wrong. Baylor is dead last in conference for turnovers, and they only had 5. So I thought Arizona's defense was pretty bad today. Whatever, they got through it, but like, if I'm being frank, the defense is night and day between Baylor and Houston. Like, the Baylor and Houston games were night and day in how Arizona played. And I think part of it was motivation. I think part of it was fatigue. Part of it was being shorthanded. Either way, coming through is important, but they did not achieve that key. I did think that making sure Arizona didn't kill themselves on turnovers was big. And like I said earlier, just 1 turnover in the second half led to 0 points off of turnovers, whereas Baylor scored 13 in the first half. Arizona was a little lackluster getting back. The last key I gave, and it was specific to the big guys. Awaka and Krivas can't get into early foul trouble because Baylor's awful on the defensive glass, and Arizona could feast if they turn this game into a physical battle. Well, both of them, I wouldn't say saddled themselves with foul trouble, as they only combined for 7 fouls, but it did play a factor. Both of them were a little limited in how aggressively they could play. And Awaka and Krivas combined for 49 minutes. They combined for 42, I want to say, in the previous game. So that's better. But in a game where CD Gay only plays 4 and Nelson only 6, you'd probably expect that number to be a touch higher without Koa Pete. So I will say that. I think that's interesting. But Arizona found a way to survive despite, not really achieving any of the goals other than second chance points. They did a good job limiting turnovers, so I guess I'm being picky. And I had one more additional key. This was just like a stylistic thing. I wanted to see Bradley keep accumulating assists by playing poised in the half court, which he's done very, very well the 2 prior games. And I thought after relatively poor performances in the 2 losses, Bradley was a huge step up. Jaden Bradley obviously was very important in today's game. And once again, he stepped up in the assist department. He had 25 points, which, of course, is going to be the headline. But I thought the 6 assists and the ability to get off the ball and skip that pass to Karchenkov when Karchenkov hit the left wing 3, throw a lob inside to Krivas, that stuff makes the others better. And when you're short an offensive engine like Koa Pete, his facilitating has taken a leap, and it's really made me believe even more. Arizona scored 53 points in the second half of this game. Like, offensively, they were very solid. Defensively, I think it was one of the worst performances of the season, but it's explainable. It's tolerable. Coming up next, we're going to talk about what is next in Big 12 play, what's next in seeding, and all the stuff that you want to know heading into March, because we're only a few days away from my favorite month of the year. All that and more next on Locked On Wildcats. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Today, the honoree is Jaden Bradley. 25 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and clutch performances at numerous junctures of the day. These type of performances remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights that make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count, because there's more to a Mazda, because there's more to you. And I also want to tell you about this amazing opportunity you've got on FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? I sure have. The FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip or 2. That's right. Excuse me, for 2. And that's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. For 2, you, a significant other, a friend, people you love watching hoops with. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, maybe it's the Spurs with Wemby, maybe you feel the Pistons are ready, this is the perfect time to lock it in. And now your pick can win, and you win cash money, but also it could send you to the NBA Finals. So it's no better time to look at the futures, survey the board, and send in a play. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All righty, welcome back to Locked On Wildcats postcast. Arizona 87, Baylor 80. Wasn't pretty. If I were to grade it, I would say it was one of the worst games of the season for Arizona, but that speaks more to how good Arizona is than it does anything else. Because every team needs to survive these type of games in order to win a conference. And the teams that haven't been able to do so have lost and been tripped up on the road. Iowa State, they've lost a couple games that they wish they hadn't. The BYU one, I don't think so. I don't think the BYU one hurt Iowa State that badly. I think they were just outclassed by a talented team and a very difficult environment. However, losing to Cincinnati and losing to Kansas was a fine one. I got to think of who their last one is. Houston hasn't had any bad losses. Kansas lost to West Virginia and Cincinnati, as well as UCF, and that hurts them. Now, for the sake of it, because I can't remember who Iowa State has lost to, I'm going to have to look this up because it's going to drive me nuts. They lost to TCU. That's right. They lost by 7 to TCU away. But the point being, their losses have been a 21-point loss to Kansas. That's fine. They lost by 9 to Cincinnati and were thoroughly outplayed. They lost by 7 to TCU. Didn't have that great a chance in that one. And then they recently lost to BYU. The point is, 2 of those losses, I think, are preventable. And if you can fight through bad games, and Arizona's got more bad game prevention than anyone else because they have more great players than anyone else. And they have ways to step up and win different games. They can score 87 or they can hold you to 66 like they did against Houston. Arizona's offense is great. Their defense is better. Their defense had a bad game. Their offense can step up. So I'm very impressed with Arizona. They are now in cruise control in the Big 12. They are 13-2, 2 games ahead of Kansas, and Kansas is next. We'll have an intensive preview on the Kansas game with myself and Derek Johnson of Locked On Jayhawks. I'll also do another preview of that one because I love hoops and I want to talk more and more about that game because it's a huge one, both in college basketball, but also for the scheme of the Big 12. But let's talk about what it means going into March Madness. If Arizona wins the Big 12, which it looks like a very, very high likelihood that they will, which is crazy because earlier this week, it felt like, oh, Arizona doesn't have much of a chance to win the Big 12. The tenor around the team was down. Tell me if I'm wrong. Like, answer in the chat. Like, how has your mood shifted since playing Texas Tech on Valentine's Day? It's been 10 days, and my feeling about the team hasn't changed that much, but I feel significantly better. I'm sure you guys feel even more. Now, when did it change? Did beating BYU reassure you enough, or was it the Houston game? Because I'll tell you, after the Houston game, I felt like, okay, Arizona can lock up a team that's been winning nonstop. Arizona has found a way to exploit weaknesses of a team that at this point we thought was threatening for not only the number 1 seed in the Big 12, but a number 1 spot, and Arizona could follow the West. Like, my mood has shifted drastically, says Tyler. Thank you for responding, Tyler. Tyler, if you're still on here, let me know when it changed. Like, did you feel reassured after BYU, or was it the Houston game? And I think that the interesting part about this is Arizona, when healthy, was 23-0. When healthy, Arizona was very, very different because they had more options offensively, and defensively they had more size and they could dominate the glass. Teams had good game plans, but really what happened is Arizona ran out of depth and hadn't adjusted to life without Koa Pete. They made adjustments against BYU. They perfected those adjustments and played an A+ game against Houston. The defense was spectacular, Tyler, I agree. But I actually started feeling better after the BYU game. I thought the adjustments were very important. You saw Karchenkov space the floor. They just proved that they can beat the best of the best in beating Houston. And Houston has some flaws. But the thing about the Houston game that was like kind of just nailing in the coffin of like, okay, Arizona's really good. I felt all year that they were better than Houston. All year I felt that. And then they lose a player and the panic surrounds the program. I felt even if they lost to Houston, but what I saw from BYU, as long as they could stay the course and take care of business at their home games, I thought there was a chance they could tie because Kansas could beat Houston, which they ended up doing, and they could tie for the conference, even though it would stink to lose to Houston. And they could tie for the conference and go in with a 1 seed and get healthier, and then the other players get better around Koa Pete's departure, comes back, and the other guys are ready. The Anthony Del Orsos of the world step up. I didn't expect them to necessarily win, but I did expect that wasn't a plateau. I gave an episode where I said, I think there's peaks and valleys in the season. This may be a valley, and the peak that comes after will be greater than the peak of 23-0 because other guys will step up. The Anthony Del Orsos of the world will shoot better, and there'll be more confidence of how to solve problems. I didn't realize they'd solve problems so quickly and beat Houston. I understand why that changed your guys' feel because that was an amazing win. What it told me is Arizona's the best team in the country. Arizona's the most talented team in the country because no team that has one of their best players with the flu while playing the game and has very little impact, one of the other best players out, another top 8 rotation guy doesn't play, and then you have 2 guys who haven't played the whole year step up and play against Houston in the physicality that Houston provides, and Arizona from tip-off to the finish was the better team. That assured me Arizona, I think, is the best team in the country. And I watched the Duke-Michigan game closely. Arizona's guards are far better than the guards for Duke and Michigan. Guards win in March. Arizona's front court, really, really good when whole. The other guys are getting better. Do I guarantee a national title? No. But do I guarantee that Arizona's floor is as high as anyone's and they have as good a chance as anyone to win a title? Absolutely. And Tyler, to answer your question, Tyler says the Texas Tech game got me so down because it was in McHale, because losing there will always, always hurt. Of course, and it should hurt because this is a great team, and that's become an impenetrable fortress over the years due to you guys. And I think the disappointing part of that is people lose the thought of Arizona was up for 37 minutes of that game. In fact, 39 minutes of that game. And until Atwill hit a three to make it 66-64 and Bradley got lost, Arizona still probably should have won. Arizona still probably should have won that game. They were up for 31 minutes. And the only game that I really feel like they lost was the last 9 minutes at Kansas when Arizona was first dealing on the fly with Koa Pete not being able to play. And Koa Pete tried to play, but had nothing to give. And Arizona didn't know how to find stuff. Now they found, okay, teams are going to double, and Krivas is going to play out of the double. You're going to skip the ball, and Arizona's going to hit threes and punish teams for making them shoot 20-plus because they have competent shooters. Karchenkov can play the 4. C.D. Gay can play in a pinch. And Jaden Bradley can play more of a facilitator's role as opposed to scorers. I think there has been self-discovery of this team that has raised their ceiling, and their floor was, 23-0. Like, I'm not saying that's actually their floor, but when they've played, they've proven they're very, very difficult to beat when whole. And they have not lost a game when whole. And they found a way to manufacture wins against good teams, whether they played well or not, in tough environments. And they've proven they're in a class to their own in the Big 12. Well, coming up next this week, I've got a preview on Kansas. I got a further recap on this game that'll come out tomorrow morning. And actually, I got 2 previews of Kansas. So lucky you guys. We'll hear a lot about the Jayhawks and how Arizona will get revenge on Kansas in McHale. Hopefully you guys are at that game. Hopefully you cheer loudly. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you hop in to those shows and, of course, the future postcast coming up. Thanks for tuning in. Arizona 13-2 in Big 12 play. Really great performance in the second half after a poor start. Thanks for tuning in, of course, especially to my everydayers, Tyler, Rick. You guys know who you are. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you soon. Bear down.